I just wanted you guys to watch this clip of Vashi Capellos interviewing Stephen Guilbeault. I'll make my comments during and after this clip. Thanks.
Both of them. Canada, very much so. They've allowed millions and millions of people to come into our country that shouldn't be here. They could have stopped them, and they didn't. The fentanyl coming through Canada is massive. The fentanyl coming through Mexico is massive, and people are getting killed.
Donald Trump there doubling down on his tariff threat from the heart of the White House. Canada's premiers meeting this afternoon with the Prime Minister, crafting a response to the threat, which, if imposed, economists have warned could lead to a swift recession in this country.
We know these tariffs are coming on February 1st. We need to match those tariffs dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff, and make sure that it hurts the Americans as much as it hurts Canadians.
So I just want to say something in response to Ford. The way that he has acted the entire time in the face of Trump is like a guy who is easily manipulated by Trump to be afraid. Why are Canadians on the defensive? Why are we acting like we have to have a trade war with the Americans? Trump's terms were very simple to the Trudeau government. Clean up your house, put your house in order, so to speak, metaphorically, I mean. Make sure the border is secure, and you'll pay 2% of your GDP for the military spending. I don't know what else he's included, but definitely they don't want fentanyl or criminals leaking into the U.S. They don't want that kind of thing happening. I think it's a pretty reasonable thing to say, and it seems to me that it's a tall order for Trudeau's government to even come close to that. So we are in this position solely because of Trudeau's incompetence as a leader and the Liberal Party's inaction and wasting time just to get in a leader so that we can call an election. So here we are.
Our first choice is not to have any tariff, but we already have retaliation measures in different steps that we agreed on.
We would be against all export tariffs because they're counterproductive. They're escalating the conversation around tariffs, and they're in no way, is in our opinion that the Canadian government should be taxing the very products that are creating wealth for Canadians.
That tariff threat isn't the only presidential action set to hit this country. Trump has already issued a slew of executive orders that could have big impacts here at home, declaring, for example, an energy emergency and pulling out of the International Paris Climate Agreement. Stephen Guilbeault is the federal environment minister. Hi, Minister Guilbeault. Good to see you again. Thank you for making the time.
My pleasure, Vashi.
I have a number of questions on sort of the wider implications of some of the executive orders around the environment from President Trump, but I did want to start off on your endorsement of Mark Carney in the leadership race. Every single candidate is either backing off increasing the carbon tax, the consumer portion of it, or getting rid of it altogether, including your chosen candidate. Now, you sound like you'd be okay with that. All of a sudden yesterday I was listening to your comments, and I remember doing multiple interviews with you in which you told me that politicians who cave into pressure on the carbon tax don't care about climate change. How can you now be one of them?
What I've said, Vashi, is that the consumer component of a carbon pricing system is a good policy. And it's a policy that works. It is helping us reduce emissions. It is putting more money in people's pocket for the majority of Canadians where the federal system applies. But at the same time, I'm forced to recognize that largely due to Pierre Poilievre's campaign to frankly lie and misguide Canadians, it has become very unpopular. And what I've also said is that our climate plan doesn't rest on one single measure. There's about 100 measures that we've put out the door in the last few years that are helping us reduce our pollution like never before in the history of the country. In fact, we've never seen our pollution levels go down while the economy is going up. Never happened before. And I mean, of course, I would like for the consumer component of pricing to continue moving forward, but the reality is that it's become It's not supported by the NDP. Even some environmental organizations are telling me, listen, Minister, it's too unpopular. And we have other tools. I mean, we obviously have the industrial component of carbon pricing, which gives us about 3 times more pollution reduction than the consumer one. So we have other tools at our disposal to continue fighting climate change. And Mr. Carney's been very clear. He said, if we want to remove something from the equation in terms of fighting for climate change, we have to be able to put something else or these other tools that we have and beef them up to make sure that in the end we're not losing the ground on fighting climate change in Canada.
I just want to make a few comments about Guilbeault's message there. Number one, it never ceases to amaze me the lengths the Liberals will go to get a vote. They are undeniably the party that caused this crisis. And yet, when they go with Mark Carney, they're trying to distance themselves from their own actions in the past. And I don't think Canadians will buy it. At least that's my hope. Like they try to repair their reputation for following Trudeau down this path of radicalism that was even more radical than the NDP wanted. Another thing that really disturbs me is that Guilbeault is not even apologizing to Canadians about taking the carbon tax off, or that it's unpopular, or that it's useless. He's actually saying it's my wish to continue the carbon tax on people. But unfortunately, because it's so unpopular, we have to take it off. I don't see any regret in this guy. I don't see any take responsibility for the what you've done to us as a country with this insane tax that's completely useless. And also, he lied that Pierre Poilievre was lying about the implementation of that carbon tax, what it's done. Poilievre, as far as I'm concerned, is the only one who's told the country the truth. It's a useless tax, and it's nothing more than a money grab by the Liberal Party to get money from our pockets to fund all their endeavors. And what has it done for the environment? What plan do they actually have to be environmentally conscious at this point that they've actually implemented? Their plan, as I understand it, is to tax people to stop using energy, to stop using fuel for their vehicles, to stop using natural gas to heat their homes. What is your alternative source of energy if not those things? Are you going to provide us with nuclear power? Are you going to provide us with an alternative to get our heat, our electricity? No, they're not. They don't have any plan except taxing people. Let's put a tax on this. Let's put a tax on that. Let's implement tax on everything we can tax to death people for. The result has been homelessness. The result has been crime has gone through the roof. The result has been that people have to go to food banks to get food. The result has been that there's been massive unemployment. And the result has been that people have to go to the government to get on social welfare to pay for their well-being. Do we really feel like a prosperous nation in this time? Do we feel like now we've achieved the progressive dream of environmental conscientiousness and that we have climate change firmly under our control? What really has this government created or managed to produce for that money, for that time lost? Nothing. They're not going to meet any of their targets. They don't even have a plan to implement this thing if it even came to their hands. Because they don't even know how to get there in the first place. They don't know that money is required so that people can live happy, healthy lives first. And then you can slowly try to figure out what's the most economically beneficial way to get people to be more conscientious about the environment. Maybe we put solar panels on the roof of every house in Canada. Maybe we put a lot of money into the production of nuclear plants so that we can get away from all types of energy generation apart from nuclear power? Do they talk about an actual tangible solution? Never. Never. It'll never happen. Their solution is taxing people to death. And, it's Canadians are really sick of it, but I mean, I was surprised at the resiliency of Canadian people before they were able to admit that something had actually gone wrong. Like, Pierre Poilievre has got to be one of the most patient guys in all of Canada, because I'll tell you, Maxime Bernier was even exasperated with how long people took to get, to turn on Trudeau. It took an astronomical amount of pressure and suffering before the Canadians were like, well, maybe it's the Liberal Party that put us here. Before they would make excuses for Trudeau, they would make excuses for the Liberal Party. Oh, you're against this, you're against that. What the Liberal Party has done, the most effective, I got to give them credit as politicians. They know it so well, like the Democrats in the US. They know how to exploit and manipulate our compassion for certain things, like the environment, like for for humanity. So they capitalized on, okay, let's take a really aggressive stance and let's be really progressive so that we can look after the environment and cure climate change and have really great solutions for climate change. Let's tax everything, every kind of carbon emission in existence. Let's tax all of it and see what that does. It's not a tax that you can avoid. It's not a tax that you can say, this is optional. This is done completely outside our control. 100%. Even if there was a huge protest in front of Parliament Hill tomorrow, get rid of the carbon tax, nothing's going to happen. And I'm sure there was protests before and nothing happened. So it's like, this government is so far away from accountability. It's insanity. What accountability is there in this government today that you can say, looking in the past of Canada's history with Trudeau? I say there's nothing. There's nothing. And as I said, the Canadians were extremely resilient to the amount of suffering and hardship that was placed upon us by Trudeau before they actually started to realize that, like, the Liberals are killing us. They're literally killing us. They're placing us in homelessness. They're actually making us so poor we can't even afford a home. There's nothing that this government has done that I can say, good job. You've done well in this respect. Nothing. They've literally bankrupted this nation, a strong, functioning nation that, when Trudeau took over, was actually doing fairly well for itself. And now we've got nothing. And Guilbeault and people like him really, I don't know if Poilievre has the power to implement some kind of criminal prosecution and get some kind of repayment from these people who have stolen so much money from the Canadian people. I don't know what can be done according to the law to actually get them, to punish these people for what they've done to Canadians. I don't know. And even so, I don't know how many amongst you would be favorable to that kind of outcome. Let me know in the comment section below what you actually think of that idea. Should they pay? Should the Canadian government seize those people's assets and give it back as restitution to the public for what they've done, as repayment? It's a nice idea to me. I think, let me know what you guys think. It would be great to hear what you guys think. I hope that it's not just me. The thing that I find the most disturbing, though, is Guilbeault has no remorse. Zero. He sees the Canadian people suffering around him, but he's completely ignorant. The same as Trudeau. And I think that's what really hammered him later on, that caused his decline. I mean, they don't understand that they have to be sensitive to the ones that they serve. It's called a public service for a reason. They are supposed to look after us. That's actually their job. That's their function. And when the press comes before Trudeau asking questions that are very reasonable, their hand is held out. Please, Mr. Prime Minister, can you give us an actual straight answer to address our concerns? He answers with that silly grin on his face that looks so ugly to me and just disingenuous in every way, and then he lies to the public. He lies in front of literally every press conference, every photo op. He's lied. He's lying no matter what the subject. He's lying. It's a lie, and it's a lie with a smile on his face. It's like a teacher lying to their kids about something to, so that there's no conflict right at the moment, because he's created so much chaos inside the House of Canada. I mean, look at where we are. The Trump tariff, people need to stop looking at that as like right now the reaction is like typical of what it should be. It's like we're reacting because we're angry at this. Trump is making a move into the north. This is why the tariff is going to come regardless. I mean, even if we don't want it, or even if we were to negotiate, Trump still wants Canada either firmly under the United States control or to be a part of the United States. Either or, I think, but probably the latter, because he wants to surround Russia. And I'm telling you, his tactics it frightens me because it's so aggressive against Russia. It means that Russia, there's an imminent threat going on, and that's Trump reacting. Trump is trying to strengthen the United States and all our neighbors around so that we can have secure borders and build up our military might enough that the Russians are not going to screw with us, so to speak. It really disturbs me that we're in that kind of position. They must know something more than we do, because if it wasn't like that, then Trump be concerned about, just inside the U.S. But he's talking about, let's get Greenland, let's secure Alaska and make that a powerhouse. Let's take care of the North and make sure the North is secure. Let's take care of our allies in Europe and so on, and like literally surrounding Russia, and surrounding China. He wants to get these guys in check as soon as possible and try to establish some kind of peace internationally, or at least to calm the turbulent waters that we find ourselves in everywhere. To end the war would be nice. Not nice. To end the war would be absolutely necessary. So we'll see what happens with that. And I'm so ashamed of each Canadian premier except Danielle Smith, who's been trying to negotiate on our behalf, I think, with Trump. I don't know if Alberta will receive special treatment. I don't know. That's my hope. But I doubt it very much. Trump made it already clear that it's all of Canada that will be tariffed. So, what are we going to do? I don't want to make this video that long, and I don't want to be exasperated in front of you, so please forgive me for that. But it's our leadership ultimately has failed us in every way. I don't know if it's enough. I hope it's enough to get Poilievre in the door to start fixing our problems. But we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. February 1st, the tariff comes into effect, and it's not that long. It's probably, I don't think it's avoidable. I don't know what we could do except that all the power and authority lay with Trudeau to make those decisions, and the Liberal Party. And I know for a fact that they're not going to do it. They're not going to bend to what Trump is asking, because they're just that arrogant. Doug Ford. It shows me the foolishness really of people. You try to pick a fight with a superpower, which the United States is or will be again shortly. Um, Canada and the United States are brothers. We are supposed to be allies. You can see this as a betrayal by Trump, but you should see it as Trudeau has let us down by not fulfilling the demands. There is not going to be a tariff if Trudeau would simply follow the demands of the president. So here we are. Please like and subscribe to this video if you found my content helpful, and take good care. Bye-bye.